Bad reviews happen, but they don't have to sink your Airbnb business. I've had bad reviews and they're a bummer to get, but here's how we overcame them. We're going to talk in this episode all about bad reviews and what to do when they happen to you. My name is Jason Muth. I'm a 29-time Airbnb superhost. Worked in the media business for over 25 years, and in 2016, I started my Chapter 2 through short-term rentals. Since then, we've welcomed over 5,000 guests and their furry friends to our properties and our homes. We're here to show you how to create a smart stay. Now, let's talk about bad reviews. All right, so I remember the first time that we got a bad review, and this was before we really knew what we were doing, frankly. We were doing a pretty decent job with short-term rentals, but I distinctly remember knowing that a bad review was going to come in when there was a situation where I forgot to tell my cleaner about a changeover day. I don't remember what year this was. It's probably I remember distinctly being on our roof deck in Boston back when we lived there. It was probably around it must have been after COVID. I remember this because everyone was super concerned about disinfecting their groceries. Remember that? So I think it was in 2020 that this happened. And man, I never, ever to that point and afterward, knock wood, have screwed up a turnover day. Well, in this situation, we had some guests that are showing up. For lack of a better term, it was a total Karen. No offense to Karens if you're listening, your name is Karen, but you know what I'm talking about. And I knew it was going to be that way going in. And then I screwed up and did not realize that she was coming in the day she was, and I hadn't told my cleaner about the changeover. And they arrived, and the place was not cleaned. Like literally, imagine walking into a place that you've booked for a 5-night stay, whatever it is, especially during COVID, and the beds weren't made, the garbage hadn't been taken out. It wasn't like a pigsty by any means, but it was just a property that had not been cleaned yet. So she messaged me. I messaged my cleaner immediately. I'm like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this happened. I forgot to tell you about this cleaning." So she raced over there and did the cleaning, relatively quickly. The guests probably waited outside or went and got lunch or something like that. It was a nice day. It was the summertime. But immediately I knew that I think I was toast. And I might have given some concession to the guest, like, $100, to go get some dinner or whatever it was, or maybe a free night. I forget what I did, but it was too little too late. I had a feeling that it was going to be held against us. And sure enough, the review came in. It was like a 3-star review. And I forget what she dinged us on, but it was deserved. Like, we screwed up and we forgot. And, since then we've put a lot of automations in our systems. So we kind of don't really forget about cleanings anymore. And again, knock on wood, good thing that my desk is wood right here, because I am a little superstitious and I don't want this to happen. I don't want it to happen because I'm jinxing myself right now because I'm talking about it. But that bad review came in, and immediately the first thing I thought of was, how do I get this taken down? Right? That's probably the first thing you're going to think about also when a bad review comes in. And it's not the worst thing to think about, because there are ways that reviews can get removed if they are shown to be against an Airbnb policy. But it's gotten really, really difficult over the years to have reviews taken down. And the last few that I've tried to have taken down for whatever reason, they all are getting denied these days. I don't have the stats. If I could guess unscientifically, they're probably removing a single-digit percentage of reviews that hosts are complaining about. If anything, it's nowhere near what it used to be. Now, with that said, my first inclination was, how do I get this taken down? Instead of what I really should have said was, how do I solve this? Like, how do I learn from this and move on? So the damage was already done. And in a previous podcast, I talked about superhost and superhost status. This one review tanked me from being a superhost that quarter. either that quarter or a subsequent quarter because it's a rolling average. But that one review, since I didn't have a lot of reviews coming in at the time, we had one property, maybe a second one had launched at that point. But when you get 1 3-star review, you need a lot of 5 stars to overcome that and to get back over the rolling average that's required, which I believe is a 4.8 now for Superhost. So, immediately I kind of started thinking about myself first. And I probably should have thought about the guest. I did what I could to, remedy the situation, but I just had a feeling you just get these people sometimes who, if they're going to complain about something, if they feel wronged, they're going to complain, right? There are some people that will just let it go and not say anything. But this was not going to be one of those people. And I knew it going in, and I was right. So, all right. What do you do with these bad reviews, right? We'll mechanically, here's a couple things that you can do, because if you're unfamiliar with the process, the review process in Airbnb, if you're a host already, you get the process, or at least you should get the process. But if you're considering getting a short-term rental, this is what happens on Airbnb. Okay, so a guest cannot review you if they have not stayed at your property. So a guest has to book through Airbnb, and then after they check out, shortly after they check out, a couple hours after they check out, the host, so me, I'll receive an email or message saying to review the guest. They want it done like right then and there before you forget. That same moment or thereabouts, an email is sent out to the guest asking to review us, the property. Now, there's a 14-day window in which people could submit reviews. If 14 days comes and goes, neither review has been submitted from me to the guest or vice versa, then the review period has closed. If I submit a review during that period, and I'm the first one to do it, another email is sent out to the guest saying that Jason has reviewed you. Okay. So now think about it. This guest has gotten a notification from Airbnb saying to review the property. If they ignore that, now they have a notification from Airbnb that I've reviewed them. For them to read that review, they have to submit a review to me during those 14 days when they have, the available time to review. If they don't submit a review during those days, my review to them gets published and life goes on. Same thing on the other side. So remember, check out, they get the email saying to review us. Let's say they review us and I haven't reviewed them yet. I get an email now saying that, Sally Smith has reviewed your property. And you get that email and you get that like pit in your stomach, right? We have over 400 reviews. The vast majority are 5 stars, but every single time I get the email, it's like, I hope it's a good one, right? So you get that email and maybe you sit on it for a couple days and you're like, I don't know if I want to see what this review is going to be like, and this is the self-doubt that creeps in, right? Because your review is probably good. If your systems are great, if you've had good communication with the guest, if everything seemed friendly and amicable, it's probably going to be a good review. All right. But you're probably thinking the same thing that like most people think, which is like, oh my God, the review came in. All right. So now you submit your review. And if you choose to submit the review, then the second you hit submit, you get the email explaining what the review was to your property. So-and-so left a 5-star review. So-and-so left a 3-star review, a 4-star, whatever it was. You get that email and then you can look through what they said to you publicly and then what they said to you privately. Now, if you don't submit a review as a host in 14 days and the guest has reviewed you, what will happen after 14 days is the review will get published and you will not have an opportunity to review the guest on their profile. But what you will have, and you have this opportunity, I think 30, 60, 90 days after it's published, you have an opportunity to respond to the review. And that is a public response. And that is an important piece of information in this entire equation right here, because let's say that you don't want to submit a review to the guest to then kind of poke them and prod them to review you. And you just kind of want the period to come and go. And if they don't review you, then maybe they didn't have a good experience and they chose not to like speak publicly about it. And then everyone just goes their merry ways. But, if you submit a bad review to them, you might want to do it toward the very end of the review period so they can't send a retaliatory review. If they know that they were a bad guest, they might retaliate with a review. And then if there's some things they say in there, that you might be able to get that stuff taken down from Airbnb. But what I have used strategically is the comment on the review situation. And really why that's important is because it gives you a chance to rebut what is said or at least reinforce it. And I'll get into some strategies there in a second as to what you could say in those comments on some people's reviews. But what you really should be doing with reviews is using them as feedback for yourself and for your property and for your processes. I've kind of grouped reviews into a couple. I've grouped feedback into a couple different things. Number one, this is great feedback. I need to act on this immediately. All right. So if there's something like you have a leak or there's floorboards that are coming up, or there are pests living under your deck, or just something that, or like the garbage cans have blown over and it was commented in the message thread or in the review, you have to take care of that stuff now. The second category of feedback is that's a great piece of feedback, but I'm going to put a pin in it, meaning like, I'm going to deal with this later. I've had guests that have said, boy, it would have been great if the property had a grill. This is one of the properties we're co-hosting. It doesn't have a grill. Yes, it would be great if the property had a grill, but the owner's chosen not to have a grill. We didn't market it with a grill. There's no grill. Okay. Maybe we'll put a grill there. Like, thank you for your feedback for the grill. I've had people that have given feedback that seems so stupid, but it's so on point. I had one person that said, and actually it's funny he said this because this item was at the property, just didn't see it, but they wanted to have larger mixing bowls for some things that they were making. And I was like, God, I don't have mixing bowls at the house. How is this possible? So I brought some mixing bowls to the house. Like, it was just a really easy fix. And I appreciated the feedback that he gave. There's another category of feedback, which is, that's ridiculous. Okay. You don't have to tell the guest that that's ridiculous, but you could just say to yourself, I'm not going to deal with that feedback. I'm not going to change my systems or change my property because of what this guest is saying. But you let them speak their piece in the feedback. But regardless, you're now getting information from the guest as to how they would improve the property that they just stayed in. You could take that for what it's worth. Now, the other thing that the feedback is going to give you, if it's a good review or a bad review, is it's going to give you the opportunity to fix the problem and show that you have made those improvements in the listing. So we have a situation at one of our listings right now that never even occurred to me, where the property was marketed as a 3-bedroom to the owner when the owner purchased it. This is one of our co-host properties. One of the bedrooms is located between the other two. One door goes out to a bathroom that has a pocket door. One doorway comes out to a small little hallway, which leads to a closed door for a bedroom and an open staircase to downstairs. And the fact that there was no door there, it didn't bother me. It didn't occur to me. It bothered no other guests this summer. And then strangely enough, 2 guests in a row mentioned it. One gave us a 3-star review as a result and said that we were not accurate with our property listing. I didn't think that was completely fair. The second guest gave us a 5-star review, had a great stay, and gave it as private feedback. Hey, by the way, for a little more privacy, we hung like a sheet and weighed it down. You might want to think about putting a door there. Frankly, the latter is what I'd rather have guests do, because he didn't feel so wronged and he was trying to give some feedback to us to make the property better. I guess the other guy showed up and he was like, wow, this is not what I thought that we booked. Like, I can't believe there's not even a door here. And he probably was seething the entire time. But I never got any feedback from him the entire time, even though that I was communicating with him. So that was a bit of a bummer. But he was right. If they both identified the same thing, now what we're considering doing is putting some kind of sliding door or not a pocket door, but a folding door or something that just shows a little bit more privacy for that one room. So, that was an example of where we got some negative negative feedback, and it would have been nice if it was private feedback or gave us feedback during the week, but instead it was posted in the review, and there's not much we could do to have that taken down. I even tried, and they wouldn't take it down. I showed a picture of the pocket door on the other side. They still wouldn't take it down. So it's just tough to get these reviews taken down. But what you can do in these situations when you do have bad reviews, besides trying to overcome it with so many good reviews from your future guests, is you can respond to those reviews professionally, courteously, and if you need to take a little dig, take a little dig. All right. But like, here's how you do it, right? Respond to all of them. Don't just respond to the one that criticized you, because people that are looking to book your property are going to notice that. If they notice that you respond to most reviews or a high percentage of reviews, they're not going to see the fact that you responded just to a negative review as a way of you being super defensive about your property, because that's kind of what it comes off as. So if you want to respond to the review, make sure we're responding to the good reviews as well. It could simply be, thank you so much for staying at our place, and echoing something back that they said. We're so glad that you enjoyed staying on the porch. Isn't that a lovely place to have a glass of wine to wind down the day? Or, thank you so much for staying at our place. Oh, that's awesome feedback on the kitchen. We'll make sure to put some more pans in there for our future guests. I'm glad you had the chance to actually, make some large dinners in the kitchen. Like, you can echo some things back to the guest that other people will now see, and they'll make that part of their criteria with, do they want to book your property? Now, when you get the bad review, a good appropriate response to that would be saying, if you think they're right, you know what, you're right. That's something that we're addressing right now. We're so glad you brought that to our attention. We're sorry that happened during your stay, or our apologies that impacted your stay. But we're going to make sure to fix that for the future. People will read that, and you got to fix it. But then they'll know that you're responsive and you're doing it. If there's something that they were being a little obstinate or absurd about, I've echoed some stuff back in my responses back in a very courteous manner, but kind of sternly criticizing them. I had somebody that gave a bad review last year at one of our properties, one that we own, and they didn't like how we characterized the lower level. They were complaining about the noise, about the lack of light, about all these different things. And we actually did make a change to our listing copy, and a change to some of our communications to make sure that guests fully know what they're booking when they book as a result of this review. But kind of thankfully, this guest also wasn't a great guest, did not follow the checkout procedure, left trash inside, left things a little messier than normal. And we certainly mentioned that in our review back to them. I think I was a little more pointed. The words might have been the worst guest we ever had, but I was being a little over dramatic. But I pointed out the things that guest did poorly as a guest at the property, not following the instructions, and I tried to spin it a little bit as he's just bitter, and then he left this place in a bad condition because what he thought he booked was not what he actually booked. And I mentioned, like, hey, we've been renting for 5 or 6 years at this point. We've had no complaints about the space with all the people that have booked it. Perhaps you were looking for a different experience. Perhaps you were looking for a situation that was like that. Maybe it sounds like you were looking for a place that overlooked the beach or overlooked the water or walked right out, to the backyard. But as we clearly state in our listing, this is what you're renting from us. So I did try to echo back a little bit to that guest and put the responsibility a bit on them. But along with that, I also made sure that the other reviews that had gone unresponded up to that point, I gave a nice response to those reviews. Again, just so people didn't think that I was being bitter toward that one person. So the moral of the story here is, the more you book your place out, the more likely you're going to get a bad review. Even if you're doing everything right, even if your systems are solid, even if you have a fantastic property, you're always going to find those people that are going to gripe, or maybe their experience there had, it was a one-off bad time. I don't know what could have been happening outdoors, or maybe there was something that happened indoors that doesn't normally happen. Maybe it was bad weather. Maybe they were having a bad day and something that happened at the property wasn't what they expected and they chose to take it on you. It's normal to get bad reviews. Okay. But how you respond to them and how you react is really your opportunity for growth right here. So if you are getting bad reviews and you're getting a lot of them, you got to check your systems. If you're getting great reviews and every so often you get that bad one, don't internalize it. Do not take it too personally. It's really, really hard not to do that. But just realize that if you're confident in your systems and you're really buttoned down with everything, take it as feedback. Take it as maybe it's just a one-off person that's venting, and then move on. Okay. It's hard to let that go, but you got to let it move on. So bad reviews are just basically part of the short-term rental space. They happen, but don't let it deflate your confidence. Don't let it sink your Airbnb business. Take control when you have the bad reviews, just like we've done. So thank you for listening. When those reviews come in, let's hope that they're all 5 stars, and when they're not, use it as an opportunity to improve your systems. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could subscribe to Smart Stay Show. You can also check out our website at smartstayshow.com. Thanks.